From the Covelli Center, it is Big Ten gymnastics between the Ohio State Buckeyes and Penn State University, a matchup between two teams that are right next to each other in the conference standings. Ohio State coming in fourth and Penn State fifth. Greg Franke along with Lexi Mattern, former gymnast for Ohio State. And it's a very interesting kind of a situation here, as we mentioned, that Penn State is just behind Ohio State in the overall scores, but Penn State has actually won all three of their competitions this year, whereas Ohio State has lost their two competitions. And yet when you take into account the strength of opponent and so forth, Ohio State actually has a higher score than Penn State, and that's all that's going to matter here this afternoon.
That it does. Happy to be back here in the Covelli Center for week 2 for Ohio State, being at home, their third meet out of the season. Penn State's tough competitors, but I think the Buckeyes are ready to play today.
Ohio State has, as I said, previously had two very tough competitions. The first was at Arkansas, and then here at the Covelli Center, they lost to Denver. But Denver is a very highly nationally ranked team, and certainly I think Ohio State competed very, very well in that matchup, and you were there to witness that.
That I was here last week to take account for what happened here in Covelli Center. The Denver team came out ready to play. They were clean and concise with all of their tricks and flips, and the Buckeyes came out strong as well, but just came a little short in the end.
And Ohio State has been very, very strong of late. They had a fine season in 2019. They qualified for the Sweet 16, and were on their way to a very strong season the next year until that COVID situation came up, and they're trying to get right back there here again. But we're underway with the competition with the vault, and you see a little bit of a fall there.
The girls are still in their 4-minute touch here. They're getting their bodies warm after coming out here.
Well, you want to do your falls in the warm-up, not during the actual competition.
Yes, absolutely.
Famous coach once said, "Don't win warm-up."
Right, right.
I'm sure you heard that at various times.
Only counts when it counts, right?
Exactly.
Gymnastics is one of those unique sports, especially collegiate gymnastics, where we're actually going to see 6 athletes go on every event, and only 5 of the scores count. So we're going to take the 5 top scores and make up that overall score and see who comes out on top here.
You see they're warming up on the vault. Vault was one of your strong events. You were an all-arounder at Ohio State and really strong at all of them, that means. But thinking about the vault, what are the main things that are going through the minds of the gymnasts as they go through their warm-ups getting ready for the actual competition?
They're thinking about how they're going to get the best outcome, making sure their run's precise, everything leading up to get the best amplitude off the table, and how they can find the best landing. Chest is up, they're clean, they're confident, in control, really making sure those details are there every time they start running down the vault runway all the way until they salute the judges at the end.
Meanwhile, you also see the warm-ups going on the bars and getting the feel for that. And maybe we can, as we're looking at these warm-ups continuing, we can just talk about some of the gymnasts that we expect to be performing very well. Ohio State, Lexi Edwards and Colby Miller both had 2 individual titles in their last matchup, and there's certainly going to be a lot of outstanding athletes and ones that will perform well and also entertain the crowd here today.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we do have some athletes out today for COVID protocols, but after talking with both Coach Polisiewicz and Coach Brown, both teams are heavily committed to making sure that they are healthy going into each meet. So we won't be seeing some of the athletes that we saw last week for Ohio State and for Penn State as well. But we are going to get to see Lauren Bridgens from Penn State. She's a 5th-year senior who actually has scored a perfect 10 on the uneven bars in meets past. So that will definitely be an exciting routine to keep your eye out for Penn State.
Yes, that was the first time in school history, actually, that a gymnast had done that for Penn State. She was an individual NCAA qualifier at the Morgantown Regionals and had a career high on the bar on that occasion of 9.950. Of course, this is a sport where you're gearing towards trying to peak at the end of the season, and you get to the conference championship event, and then you hopefully go on to compete in the postseason. And at this stage of the season, it's still relatively early in the year. Where are the gymnasts in terms of just their training, and they're trying to reach a certain point? I guess sort of like swimmers do the same thing.
Yes, it's definitely a building game and how to perfect those lineups. So it's tough for the coaches. They're really paying attention to these athletes and where they're going to fit in best so that they get their best score and give their best performance week in and week out. So it's a little bit of a game, but it's a game worth playing. Looks like we're coming to the end of warm-ups here. Coaches are rallying their teams. Little last-minute coaching.
Coach Meredith Polisiewicz, of course, of Ohio State, has done an outstanding job since coming over from Utah, where she was very successful in that program, where she was a gymnast there. And Sarah Brown, the head coach for Penn State, and she was commenting after their opening meet this year how great it was. We have a good crowd here in the Covelli Center, and how much that meant to the gymnasts and how much they maybe didn't realize they missed the support they get during the COVID time until they were back again. And I'm sure that this is going to be helpful to the gymnasts here today.
Absolutely. Gymnastics is a performance sport, and when you don't have your friends, your family, spectators in the building with you, supporting you through every routine, it's definitely difficult. So I talked to Coach Brown earlier this week about how grateful she was just to have the opportunity to let her girls go out and compete after they worked so hard. And they're ready to go. They're grateful and prepared, so this should be a great meet.
So now we are ready. If you watch gymnastics at the lower level, such as in the high school level, they get 2 opportunities. So I guess you have to treat your warm-up as that first one.
Right.
And then really bring it on the second, which is the one that counts.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is Caitlin Grimes for Ohio State starting on the vault.
Here she is with a beautiful Yurchenko full. Great amplitude off the table. You saw her body was nice and stretched in the air. She did have a small hop back on the landing, but overall, a great way to start off this meet for Ohio State.
And gymnastics is a sport of momentum, just like a lot of sports. And if that leadoff person does really well, it can get the whole team going as we swing over now to the bars.
Yes, here we have bars. She just opened up with a beautiful blind fold to Tkachev. Now she's back down on the low bar. She looks very calm and in control here. Back up to the high bar. She's gearing up for her dismount. Beautiful cast handstand. Great double layout. Little step there on the landing, but her chest was up. Again, another great start for Penn State. I think these teams are going to go toe-to-toe today.
That was Jessica Johansson, a level 10 national qualifier, 3 straight years prior to coming to Penn State. And when you stick that dismount, that gets the whole team up and going. Getting set for the next vault, and it's Colby Miller. Mentioned she won 2 individual titles on vault and bars in the previous competition.
Colby Miller's coming off of an ankle injury. She did have a fall on this event last week, but Coach Meredith said that she is ready to go and she trusts Colby. She's a veteran competitor, so let's see what she puts out here this week. Yurchenko, full twist, very clean. Again, great amplitude off the table. That's what the judges want to see. Good amplitude, height in the air, stretched body. She found the landing there, small hop back, but overall, great improvement from last week.
Very similar to the first vault that Caitlin Grimes came up with, so a good start for Ohio State. Colby Miller had her personal best on the vault last year when the pressure was on at the Big Ten Championship, so you like to see someone who can respond at the most important times. And now we go back to Penn State on the bars. Maddie Johnson.
Beautiful cast handstand. transitions up to the high bar with a big release. Hitting those handstands, every detail is absolutely beautiful. That's what the judges want to see, those straight legs, pointed toes, in control, good blind full to a double tuck. She sticks the landing. The team is fired up. That's a great routine for Penn State.
Well, as you said, both teams have come to compete here, and we've seen that. A couple of good vaults and a couple of excellent bar routines. And Maddie Johnston coming through very well for Penn State. And now we go back to the vault, and we've got Nicole Riccardi.
Coach Polisiewicz had great things to say about this vault. Here she is, Yurchenko. Full stuck landing. That was an amazing vault for Ohio State. They loved it. The girls are there congratulating their teammates. Again, you're seeing an amazing amplitude off the table. Tight twist in the air. She opened up right on time and was able to stick the landing. It's those little details that we want to see today from Ohio State.
Well, we saw the previous two vaults with small hops, but this one, none whatsoever.
There we saw it again. Look at her fighting on her toes to save that landing. They are not giving away any tenths here.
Gymnasts have to have strong toes.
Yes, yes.
That and when they're trying to stay on the beam and so forth. And we go now back to the bars, and we've got Nikki Beckwith up for Penn State.
We just saw her open up with a major release. She did a blind change to a straddled Jaeger into a packed salto there. Here she is transitioning back up to the high bar. She's been very clean. I see no major mistakes at this point. Huge double layout. Little hop forward on the landing, but overall a very clean routine for Penn State.
Junior National Elite Qualifier in 2018, placed in the top 3 in all events, so fine all-around gymnast there, Nikki Beckwith. And now back to the vault, and it is Sydney Jennings for Ohio State.
Again, another Yurchenko full. Sydney Jennings has one of the highest Yurchenko fulls that we're going to see from this Buckeye team today, and she performed it very, very well. She had absolute perfection in that execution in the air and a very clean landing. I don't know if the judges are going to give her a stick there, but
she was trying to sell it.
She was.
It was like she was coming back a little bit. She was like really trying to convince the judges that it was a stick, but it was close.
It was a good performance nonetheless. I'd give it to her. Maybe I'm biased.
Yeah, but you're not far from State College, so.
Right.
Here it is again. You be the judge. In slow motion,
there
look even better.
She opened up that vault so beautifully. That is what the judges want to see. They want to see that control in the little details. That's what this meet is going to come down to today with these two teams.
Next up, we will have Stephanie Berger.
For the Buckeyes there.
Or pardon me, on the bars, we'll have Cassidy Rushlow.
Looks like Maddie Johnston had a 9.825 for Penn State. It's a great score for Penn State there.
As I said, coming into this, Ohio State had an overall average score of 195.388. Penn State 194.525. Penn State score 5th in the Big Ten, Ohio State's 4th. Ohio State with the higher scores, even though they lost their 2 meets, and Penn State had won all theirs. But it all comes down to who you're competing against. And really, at the end of the day, I think most gyms would rather have higher scores than a win at the end.
Yes, that is true. That's what's going to bump you up in the rankings week after week. You could lose all of your meets and be the #1 team in the country with the way that the gymnastics rankings work. But
picture that in basketball, a team going 0-25 and being ranked first in the country. I don't quite envision that.
You know, I don't know how they would feel about being told that the basket didn't count just because the judges didn't like it, right?
Well, we're just about ready to resume here.
This happens from time to time at gymnastics meets.
Does that throw the gymnast off at all when they're ready to go and then they have to wait?
It definitely can, and I talked to Coach Brown earlier this week. She said they have a very, very young team, which is a great thing. They get to build upon the culture that they've created thus far, but athletes are tough, and gymnastics is a highly competitive sport, so having a little bit of extra time before a routine can help you. Just gives you an extra second to focus. But
and I'm sure they've all encountered it many, many times
oh, absolutely.
through the years.
College gymnastics is much faster than club gymnastics, so these gymnasts are used to it.
All right, Cassidy Rushlow, she competed in every meet last year for Penn State and set career highs on all 4 events. So she's an up-and-comer.
Beautiful blind change into a straddled Jaeger. Perfect extension of the arms and the legs there. She caught that high bar out of the release. Back up on the high bar. Beautiful cast handstand. Missed her hand a little bit there, went for the dismount anyways, and still got the stuck landing. That was an incredible way to pull through with that mistake there.
And we go back now. This is Sydney Jennings on the vault.
This is actually Jenna Lay back there with a 10-0 vault for Ohio State. Looks like they changed the lineup there a little bit on us. But either way, that was a beautiful vault. That is one of the only 10-0 vaults we're going to see here from Ohio State. The start values of the Yurchenko fulls that we saw previously is actually a 9.95. So that's the highest score that they are capable of getting from the judges. Jenna's vault starts from a 10.0, so she has a little bit of an edge there when it comes to difficulty and max score. What we just saw was a half-on pike out of her vault, and she had a small hop back on the landing, but it was beautiful. Here's
the dismount on that last bars routine where you said she made a very good recovery.
Yes. Her hand slipped right on that last part of her blind full, but she recovered very well and still got the stuck landing. It'd be interesting to see if the judges take the deduction if they were able to see it in real time.
And that's something, again, I'm sure that you have to learn to make adjustments on the fly.
Absolutely, and it's still a great score for Penn State, a 9.85 for Cassidy.
So up next for Penn State will be Alyssa Bonsall. She is one of their veteran top gymnasts.
Yes, Alyssa Bonsall is actually a 5th-year senior for Penn State. Beautiful cast handstand. Big release up to the high bar, transitions immediately back to the low bar with an overshoot to handstand. No major deductions thus far that I can see. Beautiful toe shoot as she gears up for her double layout. Small hop forward on the landing, but overall a very difficult routine that was executed very well for Penn State. They should be very excited about that.
She won the bars competition at the level 10 regionals prior to Penn State and is an all-around champion as well.
Back to vault for Ohio State. Yurchenko full. Good chest up on the landing. We're seeing beautiful amplitude from the Ohio State athletes today on their vaults with clean landings.
And they have yet to really miss one at this point. Might as well take another look at it here.
Good execution. She did pike down the landing just a little bit, so the judges can take deduction for that little mistake there, but overall very clean.
So next up, that was Maddie Pike there on the vault. So next up is Lauren Bridgens, and she may be the top overall gymnast on this squad. The 9th ever at Penn State to be a 3-time All Big Ten first-team gymnast.
Beautiful cast handstand.
And she missed all last season too, so this will be interesting to see how well she comes back.
Yes, Lauren actually was out with a major injury, a ruptured Achilles tendon. And she's back stronger and ready to compete. Little hop back on the landing. That was a beautiful bar routine for Lauren Bridgens. Like I said earlier, she has scored a 10 on this event in the past and is capable of going 9.9 every meet. Beautiful routine.
So both teams starting off very, very fast here in this competition. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this progresses as we move around to the various events.
Absolutely. We have Alyssa Bonzel at a 9.825 for that last routine. Penn State has produced great scores thus far. Looks like Ohio State had Caitlin Grimes at a 9.7 to start off their meet.
And that's one of the things to keep in mind when you're watching a gymnastics competition and you see that the team scores as they're updated. But you always have to keep in the back of your mind what team has what events still coming up.
Right. Lauren Bridgens with a big 9.9 to close out their bar rotations. We have an exhibition going for Penn State now. This score will not count towards the overall team score, but these routines give the athletes a chance to have experience competing before it really counts.
I would think that would be a very valuable thing because it's different in an empty gym as it is here in front of all these spectators.
Absolutely, and that was a very good exhibition routine for Penn State. Clean and in control. I think she should be very confident after competing that routine. Looks like Ohio State was only going to compete 5 athletes today on the vault, and they were good 5 vaults, ending with a 48.925 on the vault. Penn State's currently sitting at a 49.225.
So that completes that rotation. And now Penn State will move over and they will compete on the vault, and Ohio State will move over to the bars. And so now the two teams know what they have to shoot for to try to equal or exceed their opponent's scores on those competitions.
Absolutely. Penn State is notorious for being a very, very strong bar team, and they proved it right there with those amazing routines. Clean lines, good landings. They were in control, and they're ready to fight for the rest of this meet, stay ahead.
I think that's how it breaks down in gymnastics. So if a team is really strong at a particular one, then they need to try to establish some kind of an advantage. Maybe they'll get around to another event that they're not as strong at, and they got to hope that they've established enough of a cushion and do well enough on their weaker event that they can still come out ahead.
Absolutely. Penn State's actually ranked 11th in the country on bars going into this meet. So they definitely had the edge in the first rotation against Ohio State being ranked 23rd on vault. So moving into the next rotation, they will definitely want to capitalize on the opportunity to keep moving, and Ohio State definitely has some tenths to make up, but bars is a good event for them to do it.
You know, we take a moment here, and you spoke of Lauren Bridgens, the outstanding gymnast for Penn State who had that ruptured Achilles and missed a whole year. I think that would be very difficult to come back from that, and then in a technically precise sport as gymnastics to still stay at the level that you had been at before the injury. You've had some experience with that yourself. How is that for a gymnast?
Coming back from a potential career-ending injury like a ruptured Achilles tendon is very difficult for any athlete. And to come back and to be able to compete the all-around and to train the all-around nonetheless, it is very taxing on your body. It takes a lot of mental work. And Lauren Bridgens I've actually known for quite a few years. And she is one to come to play. She's a great leader and team player. And I don't think there was anything, not even a Achilles rupture, that was going to keep her from having the last year of gymnastics that she wanted to have.
Well, it's something that they devote their whole lives to, and it's
Absolutely.
pretty difficult to just say it's over. So now they are on to their touch warm-up here prior to the new events.
My favorite thing about being a Buckeye is probably the spirit and energy. My favorite part of being a Buckeye is just also the community.
So why don't we take a break here, and we will come back, and we'll have Penn State on the vault and Ohio State on the bars as this competition continues. Back here at the Covelli Center as Penn State and Ohio State are going at it in this Big Ten gymnastics meet. There you see the scores, and that's after the first rotation. Penn State at 49.225, Ohio State 48.925. But Penn State very strong, as you'd said, the 11th in the country on the bars, and so that represents a score for perhaps their strongest event. So you have to keep that in the back of your mind, that these scores are for different events. And now they switch over, and perhaps the scenario may change with the teams on different events than they had been. What do you look for here with Ohio State now on the bars and Penn State on the ball?
Ohio State has had a lot of growth on bars. They're really honing in on all of their athletes here going into week number 3. We're going to see Colby Miller, who won nationals on bars in high school back in Junior Olympic. And now she's been a rock for Ohio State. We're also going to see Tori Vetter in her college debut on bars this week, so that will be exciting. She's a very powerful athlete. So I'm excited to see what the Buckeyes put out this week on bars. They had a great showing last week. Definitely some growth from week 1 in Arkansas.
Penn State will switch over and be going on the vault.
This is the first time in a long time that Penn State will have multiple 10-0 start values. Again, those are those difficult vaults. We're going to have Alyssa starting off with a Yurchenko full here, which is not a 10-0 start. It's that 995 value. Yurchenko full with a stuck landing. She had a beautiful entry, good block off the table, tight body in the air, and a stuck landing. Little pike down there, but overall a great vault.
Seen a lot of those on the vaults. Alyssa, back in 16 before coming to Penn State, she's a fifth-year senior, won the vault as well as the bars and the all-around at the state level 10 competition from Connecticut. And now we go to the bars.
With Zoe Schweitzer. Beautiful release to the high bar. Overshoot to handstand. Little short on that last cast handstand there. The judges will take for that. Into the double back. Hop back on the landing. Clean routine for Zoe. Just a little few mistakes there that the judges will take off for. But a great start for Ohio State.
Zoe Schweitzer was the Pennsylvania State Bars champion and overall and floor. And last year, 7 meets primarily competing on bars and beam for the Buckeyes. And so you have a bars and beam specialist. That's valuable to your team. And now back, and this is Courtney Chinnery for Penn State.
Yurchenko full again. She did a beautiful entry. Again, good amplitude and height, good distance from the table. Small hop there on the landing, but very, very clean. This is what Penn State is looking to do, capitalize from their first rotation and keep the momentum going. Coach Brown has to be happy with her athletes.
Courtney Chinnery's another one who did not compete last year and coming back primarily a vaulter and a floor routine specialist. And now back in it is Jenna Hlavach for Ohio State.
Jenna Hlavach has become a power freshman for this Buckeye team. She is clean, powerful, and is really setting the bar high when it comes to her gymnastics.
She's from Baltimore, where she was an all-around and floor regional champion.
Great cast handstand there into a free hip. Huge ginger with an extended catch. That's what the judges want to see. Good distance away from the bar, and her arms were extended. Good cast handstand, a little short there, but tight body. A blind full into a double back. Small hop back on the landing, but her chest was up, and there was the smile.
And with a little showmanship, you can make those hops look a little artistic.
Right.
As she did there. 3-time national club qualifier. Jenna for Ohio State. And now we go back, and this is Cassidy Rushlow on vault for Penn State.
Beautiful Yurchenko full. Again, that 9-9 start. They are not giving any tenths away on these vaults. Very impressive amplitude and distance from the table.
You know, it's a fine line when you're a vaulter. I mean, you need that pace, that speed when you're approaching, but you also need the control when you're going over.
Yes, there is a fine line between too much and not enough, and Penn State's really honing in on where to walk that line.
Next up for Ohio State, will be Tori Vetter. You mentioned she'll be an interesting one to watch. Talking to Coach Polisiewicz, and Coach is so positive. I think that you can almost see her smiling through the mask there, trying to encourage her for her collegiate debut. Do you remember your collegiate debut?
I do, actually. It was out in Pittsburgh.
Probably can relate to what she might be feeling right now.
Absolutely. Here she is, cast handstand. Good start, blind full. Huge release in that Tkachev. Cast handstand was a little short there. Good overshoot to handstand. She looks very calm and in control here. She's doing great. Good clean cast handstand. Gears up for this dismount. Blind full. Good control on the landing. I'm not sure if the judges are going to take that hop, but she should be very happy with that first routine out as a Buckeye.
She's fourth all-around at Nationals, and last year, after being a three-time Ohio State all-around champion, she's a wakeboarder, so I guess she's very good at the bars too. And over for the vault for Penn State.
That was Lauren Bridgens. Coach Brown said earlier in the week that we would see her compete a Yurchenko 1.5, which has that higher start value of the 10. However, in warm-ups, it looked like they decided to go with their Yurchenko full and put a beautiful, beautiful vault out there. Again, Penn State is really honing in on that line of amplitude, distance from the table, good landings, and I think they made the smart choice. We'll see it again here. Good entry in. Opens up, finds the ground. Small hop back.
And those all-around gymnasts, you really have to admire their versatility, because not everybody can be the absolute best at everything. Everybody's going to have certain events that maybe they perform better than any others, but yet they still have to be extremely good on all of them.
Absolutely. The all-around competitor is definitely a jack of all trades here. And those athletes tend to just have a little bit of edge there. But the specialists on each event should not be counted out either.
Yeah, you definitely need those, especially on some of those really more difficult events.
Absolutely.
There's Stephanie Berger now on the bars for Ohio State.
This routine is beautiful so far. She had big releases. She is clean. Those toes are pointed. Legs are locked straight. Blind full. Double back. Six, the landing. This is another incredible freshman for the Buckeyes, and she came to play today. This Ohio State team has grown week after week, and this is what we're seeing today, is that growth.
From Boston, Massachusetts, and we had the next vault for Penn State was Alyssa Bonsall, or pardon me, it was Jessica Johansson.
Again, another Yurchenko full.
Can judge by the reaction that they're pleased with it.
Very pleased. Clean vault.
Every gymnast is taught to smile no matter what, but when you see that spontaneous excitement, you know that she did very well. A little bit of a hop there. But it stands out because we've seen so many stuck landings on the vault here so far today, but still a good effort. Colby Miller up next for Ohio State on the bars.
Colby is a veteran leader for this Ohio State team. Her team looks to her for her consistency, as do the coaches.
See some of the teammates, and it's such a big part of gymnastics, the support you get from your teammates when you're up there and even when you're preparing and afterward.
Absolutely. Here we go with Colby Miller. Good cast handstand. Up to the high bar with that big release. Her legs are glued together. She's not giving anything away. No tense to be taken here. Good cast handstand. Right on top of the bar. Dismount is left. Small step back on the landing, but a lot of control. Her chest was up, and this is why she is a veteran of this team.
She had two very strong bars outings against Arkansas and Denver. 9.875 against Arkansas, 9.850 against Denver.
Stephanie Berger with a 9.85 on that routine.
And back we come, Miss Isabella Salcedo for Penn State.
That was a beautiful half-on front pike from Isabella there. That was a 10-0 start value. Again, those higher start values give you a little bit of an edge because they are more difficult, and she performed that beautifully. She did have a hop on that landing, and she was a little squatty, but overall executed very well in the lead up and in the air. We're gonna see this again here. That half-on entry is very difficult. Good height in the air. Looks for that landing. Little squatty there as we saw in that step, but overall very difficult vault, and she did it very well. Coach Brown, I'm sure, is very happy.
Nicole Riccardi is the last one up for the bars. You speak about difficulty. Can that be, if you don't execute it absolutely perfectly, but you try for a more difficult technique, how is that possibly going to affect as far as the judges are concerned?
It depends on how big the mistake is that you make when trying to execute those harder skills. Nicole with a huge ray there. She lets go of the bar, comes back, finds it again into that pack salto. Pirouette as she transitions back up to the high bar. Good cast handstand into a stalder. Looks for this double back dismount, sticks the landing. Beautiful routine for Ohio State, packed with difficulty. Unique release in her routine. Lots of air time.
We're just seeing one seamless performance after another.
Back to vault. Yurchenko full, small hop forward. Great distance from the table.
Saw Nicole Riccardi there a moment ago, and she was primarily a vaulter. Last year she participated in all 8 meets, but certainly acquitted herself extremely well on the bars there that we just saw. So what's your sense of the overall performances for both teams on this rotation?
Penn State came to play on vault. It is not their, that is a 9-9 that's flashing. You can hear the crowd going wild for Nicole Riccardi. That is a big score for Ohio State, and I believe her first 9-9. I'm sure the coaches are happy, as well as her teammates. But back to your original question, Penn State came to play. They really capitalized off of their first rotation and went to vault and didn't give anything away. Ohio State on bars, doing a great job. We're gonna see an exhibition routine here from Alexis Hengen. She was in the lineup last week. Coach Polisivic played around with the lineup and still giving Alexis an opportunity to compete here. Line change, shadowed Jaeger. A little close to that high bar there, but she keeps going.
9.875 is her career high on bars, which is not at all bad.
No, not at all. Strong competitor. Good cast handstand. Double layout. Good job. Small hop on the landing. We keep talking about these cast handstands because it is a make or break skill that seems so simple. But if they are just a small hair over the bar, it will be a fall for them. But if it's a tad bit short, then the judges can take a deduction. So every detail counts, and we saw both Ohio State and Penn State capitalize on that opportunity to go for every 10th there.
So that concludes our second rotation, and so now it's going to switch over, and the floor and the beam will be center stage as we'll move into the latter portion of this meet between the Buckeyes and the Penn State Nittany Lions. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back. So there's your score after the first 2 rotations. Both teams have been on bald and uneven bars, and you see the scores where Penn State has had an edge in both. And of course, we talked about how they're one of the strongest programs in the nation on bars. So they do have the lead, but a lot of it comes down to how strong are both teams on the remaining events. And Ohio State typically is a strong team on beam, and that's an event where a lot of things can change in a gymnastics competition.
Absolutely. Beam is it can be the Achilles heel of a gymnastics competition, and Ohio State's capitalized in weeks and meets past. They've grown a lot. They completely revamped their beam program as a whole. Coach Polisivic is very confident in her athletes. Coach Brown said that they had some work to do after the first few meets for them. They've counted a fall on beam in meets past, and they're looking to do better. And they have fantastic momentum after the first 2 events here in the Covelli Center. So I believe that they will take this opportunity and run with it. And Ohio State is going to have to be on their A game if they are going to come back from this almost 3-10 deficit, which is a lot in gymnastics.
And you almost feel it may come down to if anybody makes some glaring type errors, which at this level is not really that common.
No, it's not, and we are going to see these teams put their best foot forward in the second half of this meet here, and we haven't seen any big mistakes yet, so this is really going to be a best of the best competition today, which is what you want to see.
So here we go, Ohio State starting on the beam
with Zoe Schweitzer. Zoe is strong leader for Ohio State here.
She led off on the bars as well, and you like to have somebody to get you off to a good start. That's a critical spot in the lineup.
Yes, Coach Polisivic talked to her team this week about rhythm. Beautiful front aerial into a beat jump. That connection is crucial, and she did it wonderfully.
It might be similar to a relay race in terms of the way you set your lineup.
Right. Back handspring layout, step out flight series.
You like to get that first good move in, and then you really find a comfort zone.
Yes. Looks like Zoe is very comfortable up there on the beam. Her personality shines on this event. She's very serious, good competitor, full turn. She hasn't bobbled once in this routine. Getting ready for her dismount here. Side aerial, full twisting. Dismount, stuck landing. This is why she's the leadoff for Ohio State. There was not a single mistake in that routine that I was able to find. Coach Polisivic's very happy.
And she was more bars, known for her bars abilities prior to Ohio State, though she was very strong all around, competed for bars, beam, and floor for the Buckeyes, but that was a great way to start Ohio State on the beam. And now it's Penn State on the floor. This is Alyssa Bonsall.
Alyssa Bonsall, this fifth-year senior, a veteran athlete for Penn State, leading her team off on the floor exercise. Opening with a beautiful double back, chest up on the landing. Penn State has Rachel Innes doing their choreography for this team. Coach Brown said she's looking forward to seeing the artistry and the performance value really escalate here with her athletes.
That's just what I was going to say, more than any. This is where the artistic aspect comes in as much as the technical.
Yes.
And they can be artistic while they're resting up for their next tumbling pass.
Absolutely. Show your personality and really just have fun. Double pike to finish her routine, stuck landing. Big smiles there. Coach Brown is fired up in the background. You can see her.
And Alyssa Bonsall was second in the floor in the level 10 regional competition prior to arriving at Penn State, and has been very solid as a floor competitor throughout her career with the Nittany Lions. Colby Miller is next up on the beam for Ohio State.
Colby, again, this veteran athlete for this Ohio State team.
See the scarlet and gray in the stands congregated right behind that beam apparatus.
It's a beautiful picture after not having fans, family, and friends here to support them. Flight series by Cansping layout step out. She does fall off the beam. It's going to be a 5/10 deduction, unfortunately, but let's see how Colby finishes.
Rule number 1 is stay on the beam,
Yes,
even if you got to hold on with your toes.
right. Zoe Schweitzer opened with a 9.875 for the Buckeyes. Side aerial, beat jump. Everything counts. She may have had a major mistake here at the beginning, but every 10th counts. This is early in the lineup. Those sideways landings can be very difficult because you're losing sight of the beam.
That's why it's so important to be able to refocus after a fall.
Gainer full, stuck landing, good finish for Colby.
You can tell just a trace of discontent there, but nevertheless, she finished very well. The great dismount in particular. Now we go back to the floor, and it's Jessica Johansson.
A 9.825 for Alyssa Bonsall to start off the floor rotation for Penn State. Opening here with a big double pike. Great landing. Saw a little bit of flex toes there. The judges can take off for that. These are those small details that the judges will be looking for, especially with the high level of competition that's happening today. They are looking for you to be absolutely perfect.
Jessica Johansson, a freshman, a 3-time level 10 national qualifier, but I'm sure this kind of environment is relatively new to her.
Absolutely, the stakes are a little bit higher. Everything that you do counts for your team. It's not just you. And that can be a little nerve-wracking coming into a collegiate setting. 1.5 front layout. Oh, she does step out of bounds there, which will come off of her final score at the end. Seeing those mistakes come out here, both for Ohio State and Penn State here. Double back to end. Her chest was a little low, but recovered very nicely. Stepped forward out of that double back. Still a very nice routine from Penn State.
So we go back to the beam for Ohio State as Alexis Hankins. Saw she did the exhibition routine on the bars and performed very well with it. And that's good too, because you get a little bit of experience and you're not just cold going up for your first competition, but it's actually going to be part of the lineup.
Absolutely. Coach Polisivic is very confident in her beam lineup. She said they are ready to put out as many routines as possible. All the girls work really hard, and no matter who's up on the beam, she knows they're going to get a hit. I can't spring layout step out. Slight bobble there, but she recovers very well. She's smiling and still very confident.
She was a 16 state beam champion in Nebraska, and she had a 9.9 on the beam against Maryland and Central Michigan in her Buckeye career.
Kick over into a beat jump. That connection is very valuable. It's a very hard skill to do well, and she executed it perfectly. Switchly, split jump quarter. Those quarter jumps that you land sideways, again, very difficult. Gearing up for her dismount. Difficult one at that. Round off, double twisting layout. Absolutely beautiful. She's excited. That dismount is incredibly hard to stick, and she got it.
She's an all-rounder, but has had some great experience and results on the beam, which is an event that you practically have to be a specialist on to master that well, but that was extremely impressive there.
Absolutely. Colby Miller had a 9.2. Again, that fall gave her that lower score there. Jessica Johansson at a 9.775 for Penn State.
We'll get another, you see Coach Polisiewicz down there. She's a very upbeat type of coach, and you had indicated when you had an injury at one point and she was just coming in, she was instrumental in helping you recover.
Absolutely. Meredith is very involved in every aspect of her athletes and likes to be there for you every step of the way.
And then here is Lauren Bridgens. She's been one of the top performers in this competition. We'll get another look at her here on the floor for Penn State.
She is a powerhouse athlete, coming in as a fifth-year senior, coming off of a major injury. Round off back handspring, double tuck, beautiful landing. Doesn't look like that injury has changed anything about her gymnastics. Rudy layout step out, one of the most unique tumbling passes we'll see in collegiate gymnastics, and hers is one of the best.
Been a second-team All-American on bars, and we saw her bars ability, and now she is really shining on the floor.
She has a great showmanship factor in her routine. You'll see her smile and dance the whole way through, which is really difficult. It takes an extra level of endurance to not just go through the motions. Coach Brown said they focused a lot on that this year, taking their artistry and showmanship to the next level.
A lot of them have dance experience, which is very helpful.
Yes. Full front layout from Lauren there. Doing an amazing job for the Nittany Lions.
And this is the kind of sport where even if you're here cheering for the Buckeyes, you have to enjoy and appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Highly entertaining. Jessica Johansson got a 9.875 in her floor routine.
And a 9.75 for Alexis Hankins on beam. We're going to see Tori Vetter competing for the first time as a Buckeye on balance beam.
She got the jitters out maybe on the bars earlier.
Absolutely. We weren't sure if we were going to see Tori compete on the beam today, but here she is. Back handspring. Layout, step out. Not a bobble in sight.
Or even a wobble.
No, no bobbles, no wobbles. Beat jump, swing through to a side aerial. She looks very calm up there. Straddle quarter. Saw a little smile pop out.
Her greatest thrill is sticking a beam dismount at the Nastya Lukin Cup, so she's very experienced on beam.
Yes. Side aerial. Full twisting layout, sticks the landing.
Well, maybe she'll say the stick landing at my first collegiate competition will be right up there with what she did at the Nastya Lukin Cup.
Absolutely. She was very calm and cool up there on the balance beam. Coach Polisiewicz very excited. And Tori looks relieved. I would be as well. She did her job. Team should be happy.
Back to the floor. This is Elena Virova. This is kind of a tough kind of competition to be in because you're having to uphold the standards of everyone who went before you.
Absolutely. These lineups are meant to do that. Every routine should build and get better and better and better. Save your biggest and best for last. Round off back handspring, double tuck. Went for the stick there, a little bobble of her toes.
Very precise movements.
We had a 9.85 from Lauren Bridges before her. Penn State is really, really honing in on those details of these floor routines. Front layout, front full, very clean, controlled landing. Beautiful landing out of those jumps. Those can be some of the most underrated parts of floor routines. The leaps count just as much as the high flying tumbling. Round off back handspring, double pike. Beautiful landing, chest was up. Her teammates are clapping along in the background.
Yeah, very much so. Similar to what you'd call the compulsories in figure skating, where they have to be so precise and people notice the jumps and the spins, but those other skills are just as important, and she was very, very strong in that routine. As we're back to the beam now, and this is Stephanie Berger.
Stephanie Berger, another powerhouse freshman for this Buckeye team. Back handspring, layout, step out, and she is on the move. She is ready to go.
First on every apparatus at the prestigious Brescian Invitational in 2019. Second overall at the 19 JO Nationals and all around.
Switch lead. Split half. She had beautiful extension in that split. There, split leap, side aerial, full stick. Oh! Little bobble there, but she was in control and ready to go. Very confident on the landings for Ohio State. They know exactly where the ground is, and they are doing everything in their power to keep their toes planted on that mat.
And it's very important to always be in control, as you say, even if you make a little step, that you're not off balance or what have you. And now we go back to the floor for Penn State. It's Isabella Salcedo.
Coach Brown was very excited for us to see this routine. She said it is sassy and fun and captivates you the whole way through. Worth mentioning, Tori Better got a 9-9 on her beam routine for Ohio State. Punch, double front, clean landing. That is an exceptionally hard skill to do. Not very many people do it, and she did it wonderfully. Lots of showmanship quality in this routine.
Yeah, the music very fitting for this type of routine.
She's having fun.
I would say this gets the most votes as the most enjoyable event for a lot of gymnasts.
Yes, definitely takes the most time and effort to perfect. And this is a wonderful routine. Front layout, front full, front pike, sticks the landing. Her team is going crazy behind her. Switch side to a full twisting popa.
Well, you said they like to build to the big finish, and that's probably the biggest performance we've seen yet.
I would have to agree, and Penn State's still not done.
Yeah, they have one more. Melissa Astarita. First we go back to the beam though. Sydney Jennings for the Buckeyes and their final beam performance.
Sydney was an exhibition last week for the Buckeyes, and here she is in the lineup.
Career high on beam, 9.825.
She's a strong competitor for Ohio State. She's a very clean and consistent athlete. She is following a 9.85 from Stephanie Berger. Back handspring swing through to a side aerial, little bobble on the landing, but still confident as she works out of it.
The first 2 years she was primarily a vaulter, but now is more and more on the beam.
Switch leap, shuttle half. Gearing up for her dismount here. Cartwheel, gainer full, stuck landing.
Yeah, that may challenge for a career high.
It might. That's a wonderful way to break into the lineup here for Sydney Jennings, coming off of the exhibition spot last week, and Coach Paul-Civic said she was ready to go.
She definitely answered the call. So now it's Melissa Astorita, the final floor performance for Penn State.
Open double back, very difficult. It's very fun music. One and a half front layout, clean landing, good smile on her face. She's having fun. Good strong leaps, good extension through her legs and her toes.
Now she's ready to go back to work on a tumbling pass.
One last tumbling pass, round off back handspring, double pike, good amplitude, plants that foot into that lunge. Great way to end the rotation for Penn State on floor.
Well, they definitely have some showmen on the Penn State team.
Yes.
As you said, they each seem to get progressively better and better, and they were good to start with. So that certainly helps Penn State, given where they were in the composite score after the first two rotations, to, by all measures, do very well on the floor.
Sydney Jennings rounding out with a 9.775 for Ohio State. Looks like they will not have to count the fall from Colby Miller, which will be very helpful in the end with these scores. Being able to drop one score is very nice in these situations. They won't have to count that mistake there made for Colby.
What that meant is that after that, which was early in the rotation, everybody else knew, okay, I got to come through so that maybe we can get that dropped and it won't hurt us in the overall score, which is indeed what happened.
Absolutely, and that can be very nerve-wracking for the rest of the lineup. They know that no matter what, then their score counts, and they have to put their best foot forward, and there's no more room for error. Coach Brown said that her team was looking to hit 24 for 24 routines today, and so far they've put out hits this entire meet. Ohio State, of course, having that unfortunate fall from Colby here, so they are down one routine. Won't be perfect today, but overall a great showing from both teams thus far.
But Penn State still has that very challenging beam event coming up, and
yes,
Ohio State will get to entertain everyone on the floor, but they still got to be very technically sharp. Let's take a break. We'll be back with the concluding rotation when we return.
On floor exercise, Grace Harrell with an exhibition.
Here's your score after the third rotation. And of course, we were talking about how the fact that the fall didn't count against Ohio State, but on the other hand, Colby Miller may well have been on her way to getting a really high score had it not been for the fall, and then something else could have been dropped, and they could be maybe a little closer in the score. As it is, how substantial is that lead for Penn State entering the final event, keeping in mind that now they have to go on the beam?
Penn State does have a large lead going into this final rotation. However, the beam for Penn State is very difficult. They're ranked 52 on the beam, which is tough. Coach Brown said that she knew that this was going to be their make it or break it event. It's a little nerve-wracking going into beam, ending on beam nonetheless, when they've had to count a fall in meets past. Counting a fall is something that no beam coach wants to do, but they were ready to hit another away meet and a chance to go 24 for 24, and they've set themselves up to go into this very last event with that goal in mind, and their team is hungry and ready to go. You can see it in their eyes. You see Coach Brown there getting her team ready to go. And
yeah, again, you can see the intensity even behind the mask.
Yes. Yes, those athletes look ready to go.
Ending on the floor, I guess it's sort of gymnastics version of the home court advantage, or getting to bat in the last of the ninth, because if Ohio State can really bring it on the floor, they could perhaps be in position to exploit if Penn State doesn't have their best day on the beam.
Right, and Ohio State is more than capable of getting a very good floor score. We are out a few athletes that they've had in meets past. However, the floor lineup is deep, and they've put some new people in. They are going to go 5 up, 5 count, which means everything counts for every athlete that goes out here for this Ohio State team.
You talk about missing athletes. Lexi Edwards won the vault, individual vault competition in the previous meet, so it would have been nice to have her in the lineup in that opening event, but all the gymnasts have done well. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
And we'll see what this final rotation holds in store as Penn State begins with Maggie Ayers on the beam.
Mounted with a beautiful split right away, showing off her flexibility and artistry from the very beginning. Front aerial into a back handspring. That will be her flight series. Good connection, kept her body moving. Switch leap, straddle quarter. She's keeping her rhythm going, which is very important. You don't want to see any major pauses when the athletes are on the beam.
She's a sophomore from York, Pennsylvania.
So
Stay on, that's what you got to do, and she almost did, but finally just couldn't help it.
Hitch kick into a front aerial. Unfortunately fell off the beam. It's not what you want to do when you are the lead-off position. Little wobble there on her full turn. She's going to want to take a deep breath before she does her dismount here. Make sure every 10th counts. Good side aerial into a layout full. It's a good finish.
And then you can see they usually try to put on a brave smile, but she gets a consoling hug from coach, but you can see that she's not pleased, and you can understand that, and the team coming over to offer their support.
Absolutely, but the girls don't look phased, and they're competitors, and they'll keep going.
And Ohio State now on the floor with JoJo Warga.
JoJo has been instrumental for this Ohio State floor lineup. She is captivating to watch. Her tumbling is very dynamic, and she's a great leadoff for Ohio State.
Sophomore, competed 4 meets on the floor as a freshman.
2.5 punch front. Little hop on the landing there. She does one of the best 2.5 punch fronts that you'll see in collegiate gymnastics. Takes a lot of control.
And they got the whole crowd joining in with the rhythmic clapping. You want to get the crowd involved, and that just can help to spur you on.
Gives you a little energy.
That's what they missed during that period when the crowds weren't there.
one last deep breath before she closes her routine out. Front handspring, front double full, very large step out of her tumbling. Overall, beautiful routine for JoJo. Good lead off for Ohio State. It'll be interesting to see what the judges take on that last step out of her final tumbling class.
At least she stayed in bounds.
Very important.
So now Ohio State, or Penn State rather, on the beam. It will be Melissa Astorita. Who we saw earlier on the floor. She had a beam win at the Keystone Classic, which was their last competition. She scored a 9.8 on that.
Looking to stay on the beam for this routine for Penn State, following a 9-1 from their leadoff.
And here's the same situation. They want to do well enough with their succeeding performances so they can drop that.
Absolutely, she did a strong punch front, very difficult skill. Back handspring, layout, step out.
Saved
Major
it.
wobble, but she does stay on the beam. Again, everything counts here for this Penn State team. Hitch kick, switch side. A little short of that 180 full split that the judges want to see. Full turn. Again, a requirement, but can be a little tricky. Back handspring. Gainer full, sticks the landing. She fought for every 10th in that beam routine, and that's what they want to see moving forward after leading off with the fall.
Yeah, once again, it's really the ultimate event where you have to stay focused after making a mistake, because at some point something's going to go wrong when you're up there. It's very narrow apparatus, as they say. So now it's back to the floor. This is Claire Gagliardi, and she really is a very energetic performer.
That she is. She's going to take us to the movies with this very unique routine here. Claire really turns on the performance quality. Front layout.
Fan favorite.
1.5, stuck landing. Claire is the rock of this floor lineup. You can stick her anywhere and you know she's going to give you every detail, performance aspect, high-flying tumbling.
She's playing it for all it's worth.
Right.
Very dramatic.
She said, "I'm coming for you, Penn State." Cloud's clapping along, getting her ready to end this routine. Claire, a senior for this Buckeye team.
She's got the crowd in the palm of her hand right now.
Double pike, huge landing. That is why Claire Gagliardi is the rock of this floor lineup. She's incredible, absolutely incredible. Way to go, Claire.
4'11" bundle of dynamite.
Yes.
As we know, back to the beam now. And this is Isabella Salcedo. So far, Penn State has not had the start that they would like, and have to see if they can pick it up from here in.
9.675 for Melissa Astorita. Not the 9.8s that they were looking at in the previous 3 events, but Melissa did her job. Good flight series. Back handspring layout, step out. Her leaps here, it looks like she missed a connection out of that switch half. She's still smiling and having fun. Good performance aspects in this athlete.
The mental aspect of it, it's important in all of the events and all sports, but in the beam, it's got to be magnified even.
Isabella did beautiful leaps and jumps for us. Front full, sticks the landing. They're holding on to everything that they can.
She's just a freshman from Arlington, Texas, so a lot of pressure was on there, and she came through very well.
Ending on beam as a freshman can be very difficult for any incoming freshman, but she handled it pretty well.
Probably the cleanest routine they've had yet on the beam. And back to the floor now for Ohio State, and said it's always tough to follow a big routine, and then Alexis Hankins will try to carry on after Claire Gagliardi really had this crowd going. But that gives some momentum to the next performer.
Absolutely. JoJo started off the Buckeyes with a 9-8. Amazing way to start the floor lineup. Then we've had Claire's electrifying routine. Still waiting on a score here. Looks like there's a bit of a judges conference happening, so Hankins is gonna have to wait a second. Gives her an extra second to breathe, visualize her routine.
So far, if Ohio State, Salcedo has had a 9.825, so definitely the best of the beam routine so far for Penn State. But if Ohio State would have any kind of chance to get back in it, so far it's working out the way it would have to. But Ohio State's got to continue to keep coming through and hitting one floor routine after another. And you hate to be in the position of hoping the other team makes mistakes. Gymnastics is such an event with so much camaraderie. Everybody out there knows what everybody went through to get to the level they're at, but you still want to win. So that's the way it works.
Claire Gagliardi with a 9.875, a big score for the Buckeyes. Personally thought it was going to be a 9.9.
See what Alexis Hankins can do now to follow suit.
She is very fun to watch for the Buckeyes. She's going to open up with a huge E-tumbling pass. Round off back handspring, full twisting, double backs, perfect landing. She's excited.
With all kinds of pressure on, she matched her career high on the floor of 9.9 to help Ohio State get to the Sweet 16. So she's a big performer on the floor.
She loves it. Front layout, front half split jump. Huge amplitude on that split jump. Switch ring, torchete half. Excellent extension through her toes. Clouds popping along with her here.
Choreography and music seem designed to do just that. And it's accomplishing that task.
Absolutely. If you look closely, you'll see Coach Polisivic dancing with her athletes in the background. Added bonus. Round up back handspring, double back. Perfect landing for Alexis Hankins.
Oh, look at that.
So excited.
She's pumped and punching the air.
That was a next to perfect floor routine. I would love to see the judges' notes because I have none.
Well, I can say one thing. She wasn't just trying to put on a good face.
That was
She was psyched up.
incredible. We're going to go to beam here with Lauren Bridgens.
Here's one who they can usually count on to come through with a great effort when they need it.
Kick over, good landing. Chin was up on that landing, she's confident.
She was a second-team All-American on the bars as a freshman, was 15th in the nation.
Switch leap into a side aerial, no movement.
Mentioned she was 3-time all Big Ten first team. Very likely could make it 4.
Front handspring, layout, step out. Again, no movement. Score came in for Alexis Hankins at a 9-9.
Now there's your 9-9. She's the 9th gymnast at Penn State ever to be 3-time first team all Big Ten.
1.5, dismount, little hop on the landing, but this is why she's a 5th-year senior. She is captivating. Veteran athlete. Put the lion ears on her after that routine. Maybe it's like a crown, we'll have to ask.
Guess that's the equivalent of getting the Buckeye on your helmet when you make a big play
There
for
you
Ohio
go.
State.
Jenna Lavac on the floor. Little Britney Spears. Huge pike full in. That's an E tumbling pass. It's very difficult. She's flying through there.
They're definitely going for the high intensity routines here.
Ohio State has everything to gain on this last event, and they're going for it.
You can almost sense that they knew they need to come up big on every one, and they're striving to do just that.
Every one of Ohio State's athletes are competitors, especially this floor lineup. They trained for this, they're ready for it. And the crowd is helping them along.
Attacking
Tumbling
again.
pass, double back, 6 the landing. I'm speechless. The crowd's on their feet.
They practically jumped through the roof cheering for her. In the low roof here, they almost were able to do it.
Right.
And the noise just reverberating around this hall as they are really putting on a show here. As we go back now to the beam for Penn State, this is Elena Burova.
A 9-8 for Lawrence Bridgens before her. Mike handspring layout step out with a clean landing.
Lauren Bridgens, the veteran, really came through.
Split jump into a ring jump. Ring jump's extremely difficult. They lose sight of the beam for a second and have to find it. Penn State's in a tough position right now. The crowd is going wild for a 9.925 for Jenna Lavac, I'm sorry, on the floor. This is a tough position for an athlete to be in, ending on beam. And she handled it very, very nicely. Good landing on that 1.5.
You can definitely see watching this why it's the custom to have the home team end on the floor. It is definitely an advantage. And the visiting team to end on the beam. Next up, Miriam Perez.
As we talked about earlier, Ohio State's in a very unique position. Putting 5 athletes out on the floor, they will not be able to drop a score, so this routine will count for the Buckeyes.
Miriam Perez
Front layout, front 1.5.
did not compete last year. Only 1 meet in 2020, 7 in 2019, but here she is in a really critical role here. The anchor performance on the floor.
We're just starting to see what Miriam's capable of doing. She has beautiful leaps and jumps, good showmanship quality.
You know the coach has got a lot of confidence in her to insert her in this spot in the lineup.
The anchor spot is definitely one that's highly touted, so she is in a great position to get a good score if she puts up a good routine, especially following 2 9.9 routines.
This would bring the house down if she'd come up with another one.
Ending here with a round-off by handspring, double pike. Oh, just steps out of bounds there. But an overall wonderful floor routine for Miriam. She should be very happy with her floor debut.
And on the beam now.
This routine means everything for Penn State.
This is Maddie Johnson, or Amy Bladen.
Back handspring layout, step out. Little bobble there, her chest was down. They're looking for this athlete to stay on the beam so they don't have to count a fall.
She is from Sarnia, Ontario. She was 10th in all-around at the 17 Canadian National Championships. Won the all-around at the Ontario Provincial Championship.
Side aerial, swings through, puts her foot in front there. Definitely some little details that the judges will be taking some deductions for. But overall, this athlete is fighting for everything that she can. Gainer full, sticks the landing.
Well, a lot of the Ohio State fans are giving an appreciative round of applause for their team for a gallant effort on the floor. We'll just have to see how the scores play out.
It's a 9.725 for Miriam. Again, she did lose a 10th off of her final score because she stepped out of bounds.
So what's your sense of it right now?
Ohio State did everything they could to come back from a deficit, did a great job. They put out one of the best floor rotations they've had in multiple seasons. And I think they have to be very proud of their performance today. They did not let an early deficit change how they continued through the rest of the meet.
9.725 for the final floor routine by Miriam Perez.
We're waiting for a final score from Penn State.
Amy Bladen still have yet to record a score for her on that final beam routine.
Amy Bladen looks like it comes in at 9.7.
And Penn State did not really have the greatest beam, and it looks like Ohio State.
It looks like Ohio State managed to pull out a win.
They did it. It was the exact scenario that we said it had to be. Ohio State had to come up big on the floor. They had to do it with 5 routines, knowing everyone would count, and Penn State would have to not have their best day on the beam, and those 2 scenarios came about, and it looks like Ohio State has overtaken what looked to be a pretty substantial Penn State lead going into the last rotation.
That it was. Ohio State came to play, and they knew that they were competing against themselves in this very last rotation. They had to put in all of the effort 100% of the time, and they did it. And Penn State, throughout this beam rotation, actually had a great upswing from their meets in the past. They were counting falls, and this time they did not count a fall. They had one major mistake, and everyone else capitalized off the opportunity of this momentum and kept going from meets past, and they have a lot to be proud of for the way they finished on beam today.
They're still finishing with an exhibition beam. That has to be, they're still bravely congratulating their teammate for that, but it's got to be a little bit of a downer, but that's right. And they had the first situation that we'd said the Ohio State faced. They had that fall, but they didn't have to count it. But very early in the meet, when Penn State started well on the bars, when they were very strong on the bars, and we said that you have to wait because it all depends on who's still got what event to come. And Ohio State had the ideal scenario there, but still it looked like a tall order to overcome that entire deficit.
Absolutely. These teams went toe-to-toe today. Both coaches had expressed their goal of going 24 for 24 of hit routines today. Both teams fell short by one routine, 23 for 24 for each of these teams, and an amazing matchup in their first week of conference play.
Well, as the famous song says, 23 out of 24 ain't bad.
No,
And
not bad at all.
I think that the disappointment for Penn State, it probably has to sting. You even said historically sometimes that they've had some disappointments against Ohio State.
Absolutely. Ohio State always gets the best competitive value out of each team that they face week in and week out. And they got that out of Penn State. Penn State's score today is almost 2 points higher than what they've had in meets past, which is almost unheard of in collegiate gymnastics. Ohio State capitalizing again off of another great opportunity. Each meet their score is rising just like Penn State. So this is their first win of the season, and this one has to feel good knowing that they were trailing by so much for the first 3 rotations.
Penn State's average score was 194.525. They were 196.425, so almost an entire 2 points higher. So they have to feel good about that, even though they can't be happy with the outcome. Ohio State was at 195.388, 196.450, and that's what the teams want to be doing, especially at this stage of the season, is continuing to build toward their peak when they really need it to be.
Absolutely. Ohio State's team is filled with a lot of veterans and some very powerful freshmen coming in. You're watching Jenna Layback, Steph Berger, and Tori Vetter kind of fill these instrumental shoes. And then you have seniors like Colby Miller who are paving a way for them to be great. And Claire Gagliardi on floor, her performance value is unmatched. So this Buckeye team has a lot to accomplish this season, and they still have room for growth.
I think those first couple of floor routines, JoJo Warga and then Claire Gagliard and then Alexis Hankins, you could just sense that something was starting to build, something was maybe going to happen here. And it did. Nobody was really certain how the scores were going to fall at the end, but 196.450 to 196.425, very close it turned out. But Ohio State really put on a spectacle here for the fans and came up with a tremendous effort here in winning this competition. As here you see the scores there. It's got to be disappointing for Coach Brown of Penn State, but I think she also has to know that her team did extremely well.
They did extremely, extremely well today. They started off very strong on bars. It's their best event. They went to vault and continued that momentum, which is very hard to do on an event that they weren't feeling too confident after the warm-ups that we saw. And they put out very consistent vaults with clean landings, went to floor and put on a show, which is what Coach Brown wanted to do. They went to beam and did not have to count a fall, which it was their goal going into this meet.
They had just maybe a couple of slight things that if they could have cleaned up, they could have still held off Ohio State, but really they did well enough to win. Going into that last rotation, they probably could have felt that if they did what they did, it would be enough to win for them, but Ohio State just came through beyond perhaps what any expectation would be.
They bulldozed right through those floor routines and didn't give the judges room for error at all. Knew what they needed to do, and they did it. It's as simple as that.
All right, so very, very entertaining afternoon. We're going to stay on for the awards ceremony, which certainly should be worth watching. And it's going to be a very uplifting moment for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and the fans that have stayed to watch are going, and a lot of them have, so that shows a lot of commitment and dedication as far as the fans go. But
Absolutely.
this certainly has to, I think, give them a real boost going forward in the season now.
Absolutely. Both teams really had an opportunity to put their best foot forward, and they did. This was a true testament of how competitive gymnastics is. Each team did their best, and unfortunately for Penn State, they just came up a quarter of a tenth short, and the great news for Ohio State is they're coming out with their first win of the season.
Well, we started off by saying that it was somewhat counterintuitive. Not really, though, if you follow gymnastics, and if you look at the respective schedules. Penn State had a perfect 3-0 record. Ohio State was 0-2, but Ohio State had the stronger, the higher overall team score. And, of course, that was what it was going to boil down to today. None of the previous meets really meant anything. And it came out just about the way it was prior to this meet, even though both teams came up with their best output of the year.
We're going to see some individual event titles get handed out today.
Today's MVP award winners will receive chocolate-covered strawberry bouquets from the Kiwanis of Dublin. Thank you for your continued support of Ohio State women's gymnastics. Once again, let's give a big round of applause to all of our gymnasts that competed in this very tight meet today.
Certainly all of them.
It's now time to announce our MVPs. First,
Absolutely.
the MVP for Penn State today.
Chocolate-covered strawberry bouquets. That sounds good.
That it does.
Coach Polisiewicz is presenting the Penn State gymnasts. And this is what I said before. There's so much camaraderie between participants at a high level at this sport. It's hard to hope the other team doesn't perform well so you can win. Everybody understands that that's the goal, but these athletes support each other too, even though they're on opposite teams.
Absolutely, and a lot of them, you know, you go to all these different meets and you get to see friends that maybe you were teammates with in the past. Very, very close meet here in Columbus.
And the Penn State players even applauding the Buckeyes, and that's something you may not see in a lot of other sports. Certainly very sportsmanlike, and the teams acknowledging one another.
Happening right now.
And they know that, I think they have a tremendous amount of respect for their opponents because they know it was a tremendous meet and a tremendous effort by both teams, but they're your winners. The Buckeyes, it's got to be a proud moment here after a meet like this to gather together with the alma mater playing and their fans supporting them, and maybe a high point of some of their careers as we look at the final numbers.
Absolutely. You had Lauren Bridgens as the MVP for Penn State. As you saw Coach Polisiewicz hand her chocolate-covered flowers, and Ohio State had 2 MVPs today, and a great outcome for both teams.
So quite an afternoon here at the Covelli Center as the Ohio State Buckeyes in storybook fashion come back and nip Penn State in what was an outstanding Big Ten gymnastics meet from start to finish. That will do it for Alexi Mattern and our crew. Greg Franke saying so long from the Covelli Center.